The champagne in my glass trembled with each step I took toward the rooftop door. My husband Ethan's 35th birthday celebration hummed below me, the voices of our friends growing fainter as I ascended the stairs. Earlier that evening, I'd noticed Laurel, our neighbor from 2 doors down, disappear upstairs. Then Ethan, claiming he needed to check on something, followed minutes later. A thin sliver of moonlight illuminated the dark stairwell as I climbed. I had almost reached the door when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of Laurel's laughter, followed by my husband's hushed voice. My heart hammered against my ribs. I pushed the door open just enough to see them on the far side of the rooftop garden I had spent 3 years cultivating. Ethan's hands were on her waist, her arms wrapped around his neck. Their silhouettes merged in the dim string lights I had hung just that morning for his party. The champagne glass slipped from my fingers, but I caught it before it shattered. Neither of them noticed. I watched in silent horror as my husband of 7 years kissed the woman who had brought us a housewarming gift when we moved in. The woman who borrowed sugar and returned it with homemade cookies. The woman whose husband was downstairs, laughing with our other guests, unaware that his wife was in the arms of mine. A strange calm washed over me. I stepped back and quietly closed the door. My hand found the key in the lock, the old-fashioned kind that couldn't be opened from the outside without another key. I turned it once, twice, hearing the solid click of the deadbolt sliding into place. Then I descended the stairs, each step measured and deliberate, the champagne still perfectly steady in my hand. 3 months earlier, I might have noticed the signs. But I was buried in work, finalizing the biggest architectural project of my career, a sustainable community center that had consumed my waking hours for the past year. Ethan had been supportive at first, bringing me dinner at the office and listening to my excited ramblings about thermal efficiency and rainwater collection systems. But something had shifted in the past few months. The dinner stopped. The interest in my work waned. When I did come home at a reasonable hour, Ethan was often out, claiming drinks with colleagues or late meetings. I didn't question it. We'd been married long enough that I trusted him implicitly. Besides, his marketing firm had landed several new clients. It made sense that he was busier. Laurel had moved in 2 years ago with her husband James, a quiet accountant who worked from home. She was everything I wasn't, spontaneous, loud, with a constant stream of social engagements. She wore vibrant colors and laughed too loudly at parties. I preferred neutral tones and quiet conversations in the corner. She taught yoga. I designed buildings. We were friendly but never friends. "Olivia, you should join us for drinks sometime," she'd say whenever we passed in the hallway of our brownstone building. "You work too hard." I always smiled and promised I would when my project was finished. I never did. Maybe that's why I didn't see it happening. The lingering conversations when they thought I wasn't watching. The way Ethan's eyes followed her when she entered a room. The text notifications he quickly dismissed when I sat beside him. The first concrete sign came 6 weeks ago. I'd come home unexpectedly early, my afternoon meeting canceled. As I approached our building, I saw them on the front steps. Nothing inappropriate, just talking, but there was an intensity to their posture, heads bent close together. When they saw me, they jumped apart like teenagers caught smoking behind the school. "Olivia, you're home early," Ethan said, his voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "Meeting canceled," I replied, watching Laurel fidget with her bracelets. "I was just asking Ethan about that marketing conference," she said. "James is thinking of changing careers." It was a plausible explanation. James had mentioned being dissatisfied with accounting. But something about the way she couldn't meet my eyes made me uneasy. That night, for the first time in our marriage, I checked Ethan's phone while he showered. There were no suspicious texts, no hidden apps. I felt ashamed of myself and vowed not to give in to paranoia again. The second sign came 3 weeks later. I was working late, again, when my colleague mentioned seeing Ethan at a restaurant across town. He was with some blonde woman. I would have said hello, but they seemed intense. When I asked Ethan about his evening, he said he'd worked late and grabbed takeout. The lie hung between us, but I couldn't bring myself to confront him. Not yet. Not without certainty. 1 week before his birthday party, I came home to find Laurel leaving our apartment. She had a bottle of wine in her hand and looked flushed. Oh, Olivia. I was just dropping off a birthday present for Ethan. Early, I know, but we're going out of town next weekend. Ethan appeared behind her, looking equally flustered. Isn't that thoughtful? Laurel remembered my favorite wine. Ethan hated red wine. The bottle she held was red wine. How nice, I said, smiling tightly. Aren't we lucky to have such thoughtful neighbors? That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to his even breathing, wondering how long it had been going on, wondering what I had done wrong, wondering if he had ever really loved me. And yet, despite all the signs, despite my growing certainty, nothing could have prepared me for the sight of them together on our rooftop, on the night of his birthday, surrounded by the plants I had carefully tended and the lights I had strung with love. I rejoined the party, with a smile fixed on my face. James was by the bar, chatting with our friend Sophie. He waved me over, his easy smile a dagger to my heart. How could I stand beside this man knowing what I knew? Olivia, there you are. Have you seen Laurel? He asked, glancing around the room. I took a long sip of champagne. I believe she stepped out for some air. And Ethan? Sophie asked, looking puzzled. Isn't he supposed to cut the cake soon? He had to check on something, I replied, my voice steady. He'll be down shortly. Except he wouldn't. Neither of them would. The rooftop door was locked, and the only other exit was the fire escape that led to the alley behind our building. They would have to climb down 4 stories in their party clothes, explain why they were together, why they had been locked out. The humiliation would be exquisite. As minutes stretched into half an hour, guests began to murmur. Where was the birthday boy? Where was Laurel? James checked his phone repeatedly, sending texts that received no response. I poured more champagne and suggested we start the cake without Ethan. He's probably caught up with work calls. I lied smoothly. You know how he gets. Sophie gave me a strange look. On his birthday? During his own party? I shrugged. That big pharmaceutical account is demanding. We sang without him. I blew out his candles and made a silent wish. Clarity. Strength. The courage to do what came next. An hour passed. Then another. James was now openly concerned, pacing the living room, repeatedly trying to call Laurel. This isn't like her, he said, running a hand through his hair. She would have told me if she was leaving. Maybe check upstairs? Someone suggested. Good idea, I said, setting down my glass. I'll show you the way, James. We climbed the stairs together, his worry palpable. When we reached the rooftop door, I made a show of trying the handle. That's strange, I said. It's locked. It's never locked. James knocked loudly. Laurel, are you up there? Silence. Then, faintly, Laurel's voice. James? Is that you? Laurel. What are you doing up there? Why is the door locked? A pause. I could almost picture them frantically straightening their clothes, concocting a story. I came up for some air, and the door must have locked behind me. I've been stuck here for hours. James looked at me in confusion. Do you have a key? Of course, I said, patting my pockets. Oh, it must be in our bedroom. Let me get it. Wait, he said, pressing his ear to the door. Is someone else up there with you? Another silence, heavier this time. Ethan's up here too, she finally admitted. He heard me calling for help and came up, but the door locked behind him as well. I watched James's face as he processed this information. Nothing suspicious on the surface, just an unfortunate coincidence. But something in her tone must have triggered his own doubts, because his expression shifted subtly. I'll get the key, I said, turning toward our bedroom. Inside, I closed the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. This was the moment where I had to decide. I could get the key, unlock the door, and pretend I believed their story. We could all go on, the lies festering beneath polite smiles. Or I opened my bedside drawer and removed the small metal key. Then I walked to the window that overlooked the alley and the fire escape. From this angle, I could just see the edge of the rooftop 4 stories up. And there they were, peering over the edge, clearly contemplating the climb down. I opened the window. Looking for an escape route? I called up to them, my voice carrying in the quiet night air. They froze, two silhouettes against the night sky. Even from this distance, I could see the panic on their faces. Olivia, Ethan called down, his voice strained. This isn't what it looks like. I laughed, the sound echoing off the brick walls. It never is it? Please, Laurel pleaded. Just open the door. We can talk about this. I think we're past talking, don't you? I held up the key, so they could see it glinting in the moonlight. I saw everything. I locked the door. And now everyone at the party is wondering where you two disappeared to. The color drained from their faces, visible even in the dim light. James is upstairs right now, I continued, waiting for me to bring this key. What should I tell him, Laurel? That you've been sleeping with my husband? That the reason you're both trapped up there is because you were too busy kissing to notice me lock the door? Please don't, she whispered, but the night air carried her words to me clearly. James will leave me. I finished for her. Divorce you? Yes, I imagine he would. Olivia. Ethan's voice was desperate now. I'm sorry.
It was a mistake.
A stupid, terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk, I said, my voice hardening. What you did was a choice. Multiple choices, over weeks or months. Don't insult me by calling it a mistake. A knock on the bedroom door startled me. Olivia? James's voice. Did you find the key? I looked back up at the two figures on the roof, their expressions pleading in the moonlight. Coming, I called to James, never taking my eyes off them. Then, more quietly, so only they could hear, time to face the consequences of your choices. I closed the window and turned, key in hand, ready to unlock more than just a door. I stood at the rooftop door, James beside me, key poised in the lock. Behind this door was the end of my marriage, the end of his. 7 years of my life with Ethan, reduced to this moment. Are you all right? James asked, noticing my hesitation. You look pale. I turned to look at him. Honest, straightforward James. He deserved to know the truth. Before I opened this door, I said quietly, you should know something. His brow furrowed. What is it? They're not locked up there by accident. Understanding dawned slowly on his face, followed by disbelief, then pain. What are you saying? I saw them together. I said, the words like glass in my throat. Kissing. I locked the door. He staggered back as if I'd struck him, bracing himself against the wall. No, he whispered. Laurel wouldn't. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. I wish I were wrong. He was silent for a long moment, processing. Then his expression hardened. Open it. I turned the key, hearing the mechanism click. James pushed past me, throwing the door open with such force it slammed against the wall. Ethan and Laurel were standing on opposite sides of the rooftop, as if distance could erase what had happened between them. They both jumped at our entrance, their guilty faces confirming everything. James, Laurel said, her voice breaking. It's not. Don't. He cut her off, voice ice cold. Don't you dare say it's not what it looks like. I stepped onto the rooftop, my eyes finding Ethan's. He looked pathetic, shoulders hunched, face ashen. Olivia, he started, taking a step toward me. Please let me explain. Explain what? I asked, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. How long you've been sleeping with her? Or how you plan to keep lying to my face? It wasn't like that, he insisted. It just happened. Things don't just happen, Ethan. You made choices. Every secret text, every lie about working late, every time you came home smelling of her perfume, those were choices. James had advanced on Laurel, who was backed against the rooftop railing. How long? He demanded. She looked at the ground, tears streaming down her face. 3 months. The time frame hit me like a physical blow. 3 months. While I was working late on my community center project, Ethan had been in our neighbor's bed. 3 months, I repeated, turning to Ethan. That's around when my late nights at the office started. Is that what triggered this? I wasn't available enough, so you found someone who was? Ethan ran a hand through his hair. You were never home, Olivia. We barely talked anymore. Everything was about that damn building. So, instead of talking to me about it, you decided to sleep with our neighbor? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. That was your solution? I tried talking to you, he shouted. You didn't listen. You were too wrapped up in your career to notice your marriage was falling apart. The accusation stung, because there was a kernel of truth to it. I had been consumed by my work, but it didn't justify his betrayal. You're right, I said, surprising all of them. I was focused on my career, on building something that would last. Something meaningful.
I thought you understood that.
I thought you were proud of me. I was, he said, deflating. I am. But I felt like I didn't matter anymore. So, you made sure I wouldn't matter either, I said quietly. James had been silent, staring at Laurel with such raw hurt it was difficult to watch. In our bed, he finally asked, his voice barely audible. Laurel's silence was answer enough. He turned away, a strangled sound escaping him. James, please. She reached for him, but he shook her off. Don't touch me, he hissed. Then, to all of us, there's a party downstairs. People are looking for both of you. What do you suggest we tell them? The question hung in the air. I found myself laughing, a hollow sound with no humor. The truth, I said. We tell them the truth. Olivia, no, Ethan pleaded. We don't need to humiliate ourselves in front of everyone. Humiliate ourselves? I echoed.
No, Ethan.
You and Laurel humiliated yourselves when you decided to sneak away during your own birthday party to make out on the roof. I'm just going to inform everyone of the facts. Please, Laurel begged, looking from me to James. Can't we handle this privately? Like you handled your affair privately? James snapped. In our home? In our bed? I made a terrible mistake, she said, tears flowing freely now. I'll do anything to fix this. Some things can't be fixed, I said, looking at Ethan. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that our marriage was over. The realization brought not pain, but relief. You should both come downstairs, I continued, my decision made. Make whatever excuses you want. Say you got locked out accidentally. I won't contradict you tonight. But tomorrow, Ethan, I want you out of our apartment. And I'll be filing for divorce. The color drained from his face. Olivia, please. It was a mistake. I'll end it, I swear. We can go to counseling, work through this. There's nothing to work through, I said, surprised by how certain I felt. You broke something that can't be repaired. I deserve better than lies. I turned to James, who looked shell-shocked. What about you? He stared at Laurel for a long moment. I don't know, he said finally. But I can't stay in that apartment tonight, not knowing what happened there. You can stay with me tonight if you'd like, I offered. Ethan can sleep on the couch. Olivia, Ethan protested. It's my apartment too, I reminded him. And right now, I don't want to look at you. I turned back to the door. Take a few minutes to compose yourselves. Then come down and say your goodbyes to the guests. I'm ending this party. As I reached the door, Ethan called after me. I do love you, Olivia. Despite everything I do. I paused, not turning around. If this is your version of love, Ethan, I want no part of it. With that, I descended the stairs, James following close behind, leaving our spouses on the rooftop where their affair had been exposed. The party would end soon. And with it, my marriage. 6 months after the rooftop incident, I stood in the sun-drenched atrium of my newly completed community center, watching as the mayor cut the ceremonial ribbon. Applause erupted around me. The project that had consumed 2 years of my life, the project that had indirectly ended my marriage, was finally complete. As the crowd dispersed to explore the building, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see James, smiling warmly. Congratulations, he said, taking in the soaring glass ceiling, the living walls of plants, the warm wooden floors. It's even more beautiful than the models suggested. Thank you for coming, I said, genuinely touched. In the months following the discovery of our spouse's affair, James and I had formed an unlikely friendship, united by shared betrayal and the messy process of rebuilding our lives. I wouldn't have missed it, he said. After hearing about this building for so long, I had to see it in person. I smiled, remembering the long conversations we'd had over coffee or wine, processing our anger and grief. James had listened to me talk about this building, showing genuine interest in the work that Ethan had come to resent. "Have you heard from her?" I asked as we walked through the building, admiring the play of light through the strategically placed skylights. He shook his head. "Not since the divorce was finalized last month. I heard she moved to Seattle." "Ethan's in Chicago now," I offered. "His firm transferred him. I think he requested it honestly. Too many awkward encounters." "How are you feeling about all of it?" James asked, his expression gentle. I considered the question carefully. 6 months ago, I couldn't have imagined feeling anything but devastated.
But now,
Surprisingly good, I admitted. There are still moments when it hits me. 7 years is a long time, but mostly I feel free. Free, he repeated, nodding slowly. That's a good way to put it. We paused by the rooftop garden of the community center. Like my old apartment rooftop, it was filled with plants and seating areas. Unlike my old rooftop, this one held no painful memories. "Do you ever think about that night?" James asked, leaning against the railing. "The party, the rooftop?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "Less and less, though. It feels like something that happened to someone else in another life." "I've been thinking lately," he said, turning to face me, "about how something so painful ultimately led to something good. If they hadn't betrayed us, we might never have become friends. I'd still be with a woman who didn't truly love me, and you'd be with a man who resented your success." I considered his words. There was truth to them. In the aftermath of discovery, I'd thrown myself into my work, determined to prove Ethan wrong, that my career wasn't what had destroyed our marriage, his choices were. The community center was better for it, and I'd been promoted to partner at my firm. Meanwhile, James had finally pursued his passion for photography, leaving accounting behind. We'd both emerged stronger, more authentic versions of ourselves. "It's strange to feel grateful for something that hurts so much," I acknowledged. "But you're right. There's been growth in the aftermath." James hesitated, then reached for my hand. "There's something else I've been thinking about. Us." My heart skipped. I'd been aware of the subtle shift in our relationship over the past few months, the lingering hugs, the extended eye contact, the way conversation flowed effortlessly between us. But neither of us had acknowledged it, perhaps fearful of complicating our friendship.
us.
I echoed, neither pulling away nor discouraging him. "I know this might seem complicated, given our history," he said. "And if you don't feel the same way, I value our friendship too much to jeopardize it. But I've come to care for you as more than a friend, Olivia." I looked at our joined hands, then up at his earnest face. James, who had never lied to me. James, who had helped me pack up Ethan's things without judgment. James, who understood what it meant to be betrayed by someone you trusted completely. "I've thought about it too," I confessed. "But I've been afraid. Afraid of rushing into something new before I've fully healed. Afraid that our connection is built on shared pain rather than genuine compatibility." He nodded, understanding. "Those are valid concerns. I've had them too. But I think what we have goes beyond the circumstances that brought us together. I admire you, Olivia. Your strength, your creativity, your resilience. I would have been drawn to those qualities regardless of how we met." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the sun overhead. "I feel the same way about you. Your kindness, your integrity, the way you rebuilt your life without bitterness." "So where does that leave us?" he asked, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. "Somewhere new," I said. "Somewhere neither of us expected to be. But I'm not afraid of it anymore." He smiled, relief evident in his eyes. "Neither am I." In that moment, standing on a different rooftop under different circumstances, I felt the final pieces of my old life fall away. The betrayal that had once defined me was now just a chapter in my story, not the whole book. "There's a dinner to celebrate the opening tonight," I said. "Would you like to come as my date?" "I'd be honored," he replied, his smile reaching his eyes. As we turned to leave the rooftop, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in one of the glass panels. Two people who had weathered a storm and emerged not just intact, but stronger. In the shattered pieces of our former lives, we had found something unexpected, a second chance. 6 months ago, I had locked a door on my husband's betrayal, never imagining that it would ultimately open the path to something better. Something true. As James and I descended the stairs together, I couldn't help but think how differently my life might have turned out had I not gone to the rooftop that night. Had I not seen what I needed to see. Had I not found the courage to lock that door and face the truth. Some doors, once locked, should never be reopened. And sometimes, that's exactly as it should be.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.